Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtotarasata Sishimat. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishi Guru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, entitled The Summon Bonon, Chapter 8, entitled Lord Krishna shows the universal form. Text number 8. No. Text number 7. Shri Garga Uvacha Jadunan Ahan Acharya Kyatascha Bhuvisharvada Sutam Maya Samskritam Ste Manyate Devaki Shutam. Sri Garga Uvacha Jadunam Ahan Acharya Kyatascha Bhuvisharvada Sutam Maya Samskritam Te Manyate Devaki Shutam. Sri Garga Uvacha Jadunam Aham Acharya Kyatascha Bhuvisharvada Sutam Maya Samskritam Te Manyate Devaki Shutam. Please chant. There we go. Kyatascha bhuvi sarvada sutam maya samskritam te manyate devaki shutam. Sri Garga Uvacha Jadunam ahamacharya Kyatascha burbi sarvada Sutam maya samskritam te Manyate devaki shutam. Sri Garga Uvacha Jadunam aham acharya Kyatascha bhuvi sarvada Sutam maya samskritam te Manyate devaki shutam. Shri Garga Uvacha. Garga Muni said, Jadunam of the Jadu dynasty, Aham, I am, Acharyaha, the priestly guide or Purohita, Kyatacha, this is already known, Bhuvi, everywhere, Sarvada, always, Sutam, the sun, Maya, by me, Samskritam, having undergone the purificatory process, the purificatory process. Te, of you, Manyate, would be considered Devaki Sutam, the son of Devaki. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Garga Muni said, My dear Nanda Maharaj, I am the priestly guide of the Jadu dynasty. This is known everywhere. Therefore, if I perform the purificatory process for your sons, Kansa will consider them the sons of Devaki. Purport. Garga Muni indirectly disclosed that Krishna was the son of Devaki, not of Yasoda. Since Kansa was already searching for Krishna, if the purificatory process were undertaken by Garga Muni, Kansa might be informed, and that would create a catastrophe. It may be argued that although Garga Muni was the priest of the Jadu dynasty, Nanda Maharaj also belonged to that dynasty. Nanda Maharaj, however, was not acting as a Kshatriya. Therefore, Garga Muni say, if I act as your priest, this will confirm that Krishna is the son of Devaki. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swami Dinamine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Satarine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Krishna's appearance in this world is considered very special and also rare. He says, Sambabhami Yuge Yuge, that he appears every millennium, but only once in a millennium. And when he refers a millennium, it's 1,000 cycles of yugas. So it's a very special occasion in the particular universe in which he appears. It is something like when the President of the United States or the President of the country comes to the particular city. So when the President of this country comes to this city, there's all kinds of special arrangements because it's not something that is a common thing. The President in general is in his particular abode in Washington, the White House. And then, you know, you have some different special abodes, but, you know, that's where they reside. So when it comes to a particular place, it's not a common thing, and there is very special arrangements that are done for that occasion. So Krishna's appearance in this world is a very special occasion. And when that happened, it is explained that all the planets and the stars align in a very auspicious manner, unique manner, that is unique only to the appearance of the personality of God, and specifically to this appearance of Krishna in the world. Because it is explained that this personality, Krishna, is Swayam Bhagavan. Srila Vyasadeva, well, actually, Srila Shuta Goswami quoted this famous verse that is called the Paribhasa Sutra verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Or is the verse, is like the seed verse, is the verse that in which the understanding, the underlying understanding of the Srimad Bhagavatam is based. And this verse is Ete Chansa Kala Punsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. This particular phrase, that Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. He is the source of everything. And all the different incarnations of the appearance of the Lord that are, as explained, that are unlimited, that are like the waves of the ocean, they never stop. And it is explained that the Lord appears in all species of life. So, Srila Sutta Goswami says that all these incarnations, Ete, Chansa, Kala, Punsa, are simply expansions or expansion of the expansions of this supreme original personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So when Krishna comes personally, not through his expansions or expansion of his expansion, there is a very special occasion. And that is display, or that is to be known by the special arrangements that happens in the particular universe in which the Lord appears. And in this case, the whole descriptions of the stars and the planets aligning in a particular way. So it did happen when Krishna appeared, and the same alignment happened when Lord Chaitanya appeared. So very special arrangement. So powerful sages who master the science of the Vedas, who are considered and described as seers of past, present, and future, Trikalagya, who have mastered this Jyotir Shastra, or the science of astrology. They can actually see, they can read these things. They can understand the personality, this rare occasion is happening. They can calculate that. We have, in other situations, like say in biblical history, there were these three wise men. And it is explained simply by them, they being able to interpret the positions of the different stars and planetary systems. They could understand that a great personality have appeared in the world, and that great personality is coming from the spiritual world as a representative of God. And they also could calculate where. So they could see through the stars what is happening. So Garga Muni knew. And it's going to become clear by his, as he performed these purificatory processes as requested for Nanda Maharaj and assigned by Vasudeva, that he was in full understanding of Krishna's position. So Garga Muni was the Acharya, or sometimes it's called the Kul Guru, or the main priest of the Jadu dynasty. Just as Kripacharya was the main priest for the Kurus, just as Vashishta Muni was the main priest for the Son dynasty, in which was governed by Maharaj Dasarat. So similarly, Garga Muni was the main priest for the Jadu dynasty. And Vasudeva, who was one of the Kshatriya kings in the Jadu dynasty, engaged and requested Garga Muni to go to Nanda Maharaj to perform these name-giving ceremonies and purificatory processes for both Krishna and Balaram. Now Nanda Maharaj, he is also part of the Jadu dynasty, but it is explained that both Vasudeva and Nanda Maharaj, they're brothers, but they're half-brothers. They have the same father, which was a Kshatriya king of the Jadu dynasty. I can't remember his name. And different mothers. So Vasudeva was the son of a Kshatriya mother and the Jadu Kshatriya king, and Nanda Maharaj was the son of the same Jadu Kshatriya king and a Vaishya mother. So he was considered a Vaishya. And he acted like a Vaishya, and he was the king of the cowherd, the leader of the Vaishyas in the land of Vrindavan. But he was related to Vasudeva, and he was also part of that Yadu dynasty. So Garga Muni arrived on the request of Vasudeva, and Nanda Maharaj immediately wanted him to do the purificatory processes for Krishna and Balaram. Garga Muni, after listening to Nanda Maharaj, he cautions him, because it was known what happened, what Kansa did to the sons of Devaki and Nanda and Vasudeva. And also it was known that how Kamsa was chastised by Yogamaya, who appeared as the 8th child of Devaki and Nanda and Vasudeva, apparently. And as she told Kamsa that Krishna has taken birth already and he is somewhere in the region. So Kamsa has started the search for Krishna, for killing him. So he has sent already all these demoniac personalities to search for Krishna. In fact, his order was that all children born within the past few months, they should be killed. So it's a kingdom, and these are things that you assume that they have to be known to some degree. And Nanda Maharaj was a very powerful, responsible leader. So these things are known. He was related to Vasudeva. They were close. So he had to have some knowledge of what happened to Vasudeva and the events that happens. So there may be a little hint of this extraordinary child, Krishna. There's a possibility, there's always, the signs of this 8th child of Devaki that was out there could have been of something that Nanda Maharaj may consider. And Garga Muni, as Prabhupada explains here, indirectly is telling him that Krishna was the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. He says that, he's arriving here to actually perform, on the order of Vasudeva, to perform the name giving ceremonies to both Krishna and Balaram. Balaram was known to be a child of the son of Vasudeva, and apparently of Rohini, which was also a wife of Vasudeva. So there's all these things that is there, but in fact, so Garga Muni is saying that I'm here to perform that, but if I do that, it will become clear to the world that Krishna is the son of Devaki. Kansa will immediately consider that, because he's seeing The priest of the Yadus is doing a name-giving ceremony to the child Krishna, to a child that must be Krishna, because the eighth son of Devaki, who is destined to kill him or me, Kamsa thinking, is out there. And now here's the priest of the Yadus doing a name-giving ceremony to a child. So that must be that child, the eighth son of Devaki. So there's all these signs that may give a clue. But there is also the inconceivable potency of Yoga Maya that completely covers any sign or capacity of the devotees in Vrindavan to understand Krishna's position. They become completely covered. We just heard a moment ago, or during this time of Krishna as a baby, just the previous past tense of this part, that Mother Yasoda just saw the universal form in Krishna's mouth. Krishna was yawning, and then she sees the universe within the mouth of the child. They just actually saw this little baby just become unharmed and witness the death of these two extraordinarily powerful demons, Putana and Trinavarta, gigantic, completely smashed and dead after the attempt of killing Krishna. So although they see these extraordinary activities already in this baby, they hear from the children of the village that just with a little kick, he just completely destroyed a big cart full of utensils, and which happens to be the inhabited by this also demoniac ghost. So they seen all these extraordinary things. There's all these signs that are there. There's all this, there's all this knowledge that is there, but they don't see. They become covered. And that is extraordinary, inconceivable potency of the Lord, and it also enhances and facilitates his pastimes and him enjoying this with no obstacles, this loving relationship with his devotees in Vrindavan. Their eyes are completely covered by this Premanjana Churita. Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Shanta Sadaiva Hridivesha Vilokajanti Jan Shama Sundaram Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Lord Brahma appreciates that these devotees, because their eyes are covered with this salve of prema, of love, of Godhead, they, from within the heart, they only see this form of Shamasundar, Govinda, Krishna. and that's all. So the potency of Yoga Maya won't allow them to understand that here in front of me is that Supreme Personality of Godhead that is my worshipable Lord, and therefore completely disrupt that spontaneous loving exchange and relationship that is there, that they have with Krishna, and specifically Nanda and Yashoda of parental affection. So and it's very graphic with Mother Yasoda, who basically Krishna is fully dependent on her for to be taken care of in his past tense as a baby. So it's a very wonderful thing. Nanda Maharaj comes to understand, okay, so what Garga Rishi is saying is that we have to be aware of this demoniac Kamsa and be very, not trying to confusing or create something that may make him suspicious, and then he may confuse my Krishna with the eighth son of Devaki. So so he doesn't know. He is covered by Yoga Maya, but Garga Muni knows. Garga Muni is not covered by Yoga Maya. Garga Muni his vision is different. He is Tattvadarshi. He understands the full presence of the absolute truth. So and therefore his relationship with Krishna is from the perspective of awe and reverence. He understands perfectly Krishna's position, and he will approach it as such. Any comments or thoughts? Yes, Raktak Prabhu. Let's wait for the microphone.
Hare Krishna. Are there any devotees that would have two, like the awe and reverence and like maybe a personal, relationship with the Lord?
Yeah,
at the same time.
Yes, we hear that in the beginning of the 10th canto with Vasudeva and Devaki. They oscillate between these two positions of understanding Krishna's position, and then, so we hear about then offering these beautiful prayers to Krishna when he appears in the jail, and then after they offering these beautiful prayers to the Supreme Personality of God, they say, please, Kansa may come and kill you, so please assume the form of a baby so he may not, and then, so here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unconquerable, indestructible, who is the Supreme. He no cancer can do anything to, but that gets covered, and they start to fear for Krishna's safety. So they oscillate between awe and reverence and paternal affection, like that. So for us, these are things that are like beyond our conception, So the recommendation for us always is that we worship in awe and reverence, and then through that worship of awe and reverence, by the mercy of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, by what Lord Chaitanya has given us, we can start to develop that spontaneous, relationship of love with Krishna. So we can reach that state, but through the process of sadhana. And the process of sadhana is we worship with awe and reverence. So although we worship in Kishore Kishori, Shishi Kishore Kishori, Shishi Kishore Kishori are Radha Krishna in this very young age in Vrindavan. Sort of like 10 years old, 11 years old, something like that. And they're in Vrindavan, that's their mood. But we worship them, like Lakshmi Narayan, in the mode of awe and reverence, great opulence and things like that. So that's a recommendation for us to get to that position.
Thank you. That clears a lot of things up for me. Thank you.
Yes, bro.
In this purport, it is mentioned that Prabhupada mentioned that Nanda Maharaj belonged to Yadu dynasty. So I was wondering how he came, under this Yadu dynasty, because we see that Yadu dynasty was divided into Suresana and Devaka, and Devaki was the daughter of Devaka, and again Vasudeva belongs to Suresana, means under Yadu dynasty. So where is that, that category, that where in Bhagavatam it states that Nanda Maharaj belongs to Yadu dynasty. He is a cowherd man.
It is in one of the it's in one of the verses. I can't remember if it's directly in the verse, but definitely in the purport. Prabhupada clarifies it. But I believe so far I remember it's one of the verses in the beginning of the 10th canto. And that is explained. They're both sons of the same father. Let me see. Okay, here. Let me see if I can find it here. He was the son of the great Yadava king Surasena, so that is both the son of Surasena. Both Nanda and Vasudeva, son of Surasena. But Surasena, Vasudeva was the son of Surasena and a Kshatriya queen. A Kshatriya queen. His mother was a Kshatriya, Vasudeva. So a queen. Nanda was the son of Surasena with a Vaishya lady. So then he became a Vaishya. So they're the son of the same father, so they're half brothers, Nanda and Vasudeva. That's the explanation. Prabhupada clarifies it also. I have to look for it, but it's there in the Bhagavatam, in 10th canto. So they both belong, they're brothers. So that's what I'm saying, that, in one sense, if your brother is on tribulations, you know details of that tribulation because it's your brother. So Nanda Maharaj must have known, you know, some of the details of Vasudev's situation, although Vasudev was very clear that, you know, there was a very secretive, you know, this was a confidential thing of the appearance of Krishna. Krishna instructed him like that. But also, the information that Yogamaya asked when chastised Kamsa, that was public, basically. It was basically a display there, you know. And then Kamsa made it even, you know, more public when you know, he arranged for children to be killed and the demons to look for Krishna. So it's all the stuff going in there. Yeah. Anything else? Jai Baladev from.
Hare Krishna, Baru. Thank you for your class. You were mentioning some of the different acharyas or priests for different dynasties and stuff. And when I read this verse, I kind of started laughing where it says, Yadunam Aham Acharya, where Gargamuni says, that's almost like a funny thing. I'm the acharya of the priest, but before he even claimed that, Nanda Maharaj says you're the acharya. And it seems like there may be of course, he's a great devotee of the Lord, so the great devotees of the Lord never consider themselves acharyas, but empowered to be acharyas. And I haven't really gathered my thoughts, but I'll kind of relate this to one interview I was watching of Malcolm X the other day, related to this point, kind of. And Malcolm X died in 1965. He was murdered in 1965 when Prabhupada came. And he actually joined a division of Islam called the Nation of Islam. And basically the Nation of Islam claimed that black Muslims were the chosen ones. And you can understand why they would exalt themselves, because there was a lot of racism and civil rights movement, etc. But when Malcolm X took a journey to Mecca, the holiest pilgrimage site of Islam, he actually changed his ideals. He said, when I was in Mecca, I saw so many races, cultures, so many Muslims from different backgrounds that it transformed my heart. They had so much love, unity, and harmony. And so then when he came back to the U.S., he was excommunicated from the Nation of Islam, not because he kind of believed in the universal love of all cultures and races, but basically, long story short, the leader of the Nation of Islam name was Elijah Muhammad. And Malcolm X found out later that he was impregnating teenage girls. They were of legal age, but he was impregnating teenage girls, and he preached monogamy, but he was secretly. So Elijah Muhammad's own adult son came to Malcolm X and said, my father is doing such and such. So when this knowledge came to the attention of Elijah Muhammad, he feared that because Malcolm X had a lot of influence, people loved his charisma. He was like the spokesperson for the Nation of Islam. And they excommunicated, Elijah Muhammad excommunicated Malcolm X and his own son from the Nation of Islam. And so Malcolm X, he did before he was murdered by this group, actually, he did a series of interviews, and in the interviews, he said something kind of related to this verse. One interview, this interview is called "I'm Already a Dead Man," so you could look it up on YouTube. So one interviewer asked Malcolm X, with all the controversy in the Nation of Islam, do you consider yourself the leader of the black Muslims now, and do you seek the loyalty of Negroes? And Malcolm X says something very profound. He says, I do not desire the loyalty of any Negro, but I do desire for Negroes to learn how to be loyal to themselves. And the lesson I got from this is that we could either be loyal to our higher nature, or we could betray our higher nature. Or in other words, we could be a leader of our lower nature or a slave of our lower nature. So I thought that was very profound because Prabhupada says the same thing in the Nectar of Instruction, the introduction. He said the first duty of a leader or Goswami is to control his senses. And so my question is related to Yadunat Mahamacharya. When we develop this upadi, when we're given a position, because in the scriptures we see that there are essentially two types of leaders, those who are appointed and those who are anointed. Hiranyakashipu was appointed, but Prahlad was anointed. Durvasa Muni was appointed as a Brahmana, but Ambarish was anointed. So sometimes there's disagreements between, different points of view, you could say. And so, but we see in the scriptures that the great leaders, they never say, I have this title, Yadunam Acharya, therefore it is your duty to listen to me. They're more concerned about preaching with their actions and less about their words. There's a quote that says, we are told to let our light shine, and if it does, we won't need to tell anybody it does. Lighthouses don't fire cannons to call attention to their shining. They just shine. So if I had to ask a question, my question would be, sometimes when we come in an environment, sometimes we're inspired by somebody who doesn't have a leadership position, and sometimes we are. But sometimes there are discrepancies between the two conflicting point of view. I'm inspired by this person, then you may not have a title, but then, so what is a devotee to do? Because we can see that sometimes devotees get fried out sometimes because they're inspired by whoever they're inspired by. Everyone has their blood type, in other words. And we can't say that somebody's my blood type, just because Krishna consciousness, blood is blood. Similarly, Krishna consciousness is Krishna consciousness, but somebody may be presented in a way that nourishes like Krishna consciousness, but they may not have the title. And so sometimes there's conflicting views. So what is a person to do in that scenario without, feeling like, I have to leave the community or get excommunicated like Malcolm X or something? So
one thing is we have to be aware of the tendency that sometimes we have of seeing the world from the perspective of my experience and trying to understand others from the perspective of my experience is a very strong tendency that most of us have, and that becomes even more of an apparent problem when we're trying to understand very advanced personalities, or also the personality of Godhead from the perspective of our personal experience of the world. So for us who are conditioned by all this false ego, body type of thing, position may become, a hindrance, or something that triggers a little bit that, or in different degrees, that ego. So, but that doesn't necessarily, and definitely is not the same for highly elevated personalities. So sometimes we have this conception of humility that it have to look certain way because that's our experience of humility. Humility should look this way. But sometimes humility looks like someone taking a position. Prabhupada sometimes he will, almost like establish this position of the person to be followed. Sometimes he will take, a different position. And sometimes this is confusing for people, especially for why are you riding in a golden, Rolls Royce? What is all this thing? And you have this golden watch and all these opulent things. Aren't you a renounced person? And Prabhupada would call them on their bias and difficulty, because they're trying to understand. They themselves are envious, and they're trying to understand from the perspective of their own lofty view of the world. So they think everybody must be like that. But, so we have to take in consideration that first. So in the case of a personality like Gargamuni, that he says, I am the Jadunan Aham Acharya. I am the Acharya of the Jadu. It's just simply his position. It's the position that he has. And specifically, he wanted to make that clear because that could have some consequences for Nanda Maharaj's request. So he's highlighting or bringing the Nanda Maharaj to the attention of Nanda Maharaj that because of his position as being the Acharya and is the head priest or the priestly guide, or the Purohita means the priest that perform all these sacrifices, the head pujari or the head priest. It's like Mukunda Raghunath Prabhu saying, I'm the head pujari. So to someone, it's not necessarily because he may be, like an egocentric person, but it's because his service calls for that. And sometimes you have to, in order to execute your service, you have to say the things. So, so in short, to conclude, like that, is that we have to be careful that of this propensity, of this tendency that we have to understand others and understand the world from the perspective of my personal experience, from my personal lenses. And it's not necessarily like that. Most likely it will be, inaccurate and a mistake. And especially, we cannot do that with these great personalities. When they say this, when Gargamuni says this, there's no trace of false ego. There's no trace of pride. There's actually the humility of a servant, of a responsible servant of the personality of Godhead. So, and then we can learn from that at times, you have to, for the personality of Godhead, sometimes you have to take a stand. But the humility part is because I'm just simply a servant, so I have to do my service. So for doing my service, sometimes I have to do these things. So that is an important principle. Is that right?
Thank you for that answer. I just have one short thing I read this morning regarding that leadership. There was in the Srila Prabhupada Limamrita, there was a debate between the Grihastas and the Sannyasis. This chapter is called India Unifying ISKCON. So you could read that chapter. So it's a very beautiful chapter. It's so many points I'd like to mention, but I'll just mention maybe one you could explain on what Prabhupada that I appreciated. So the Sannyasis, we were complaining to Prabhupada that Grihastas, they're not fit to be leaders, etc. And Prabhupada quoted that famous verse, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi Sudra Kane Noah, regardless of your status, you could become a leader or whatever. And in that, so long story short, Prabhupada mentions Niyamagraha. Obviously too much attachment or not enough attachment. But Prabhupada mentioned in that chapter, I actually read it, some of it this morning, actually. And Prabhupada mentioned, my question is regarding flexibility. Prabhupada mentioned that in this day and age, no one can follow all the rules and regulations. And so when we try to enforce rules and regulations of others, we have to look at ourselves. Because Prabhupada said, when I first came to America, there's many rules and regulations for a sannyas. He said, I had to stay in an apartment of one young man. And this young man had meat for his cat in his refrigerator. And Prabhupada said, I had to keep my food in there. He was like, what could be done? So he's like, in this day and age. So sometimes my question is where's the balance of being flexible? Because a lot of times the tendency is that we're very forgiving of ourselves, regardless of what position we're in, but we're not necessarily forgiving our others. Like, we point out so many rules that they neglected, but at the same time, so where's the opportunity for growth and flexibility, because we're all prisoners regardless of our position. So that's why I appreciate this point. Prabhupada says, you know, nobody could follow all the rules and regulations. It's impossible. So he basically told the sannyasis, stop talking about household. It's not meant for sannyasis to just meditate on household life, you know, focus on, you know, your own self, leadership, and etc. It's many points I'd like to discuss, but my question is about flexibility. Where does that come in? Because everyone has their,
well,
growth.
Prabhupada's example, he just given, so just as you quoted, he's instructing us that we have to have this principle. I mean, Lord Chaitanya too, this Trinara Pishu Nichenad, Taror Apisha Hishnunad, Taror Apisha. We have to be tolerant. We have to be tolerant of others, and we have to be respectful too of the timing that they have for advancing in Krishna consciousness. Everybody has a particular timing, and we have to respect people's space. We have to be respectful. We have to be tolerant. We have to be humble. We have to check and curb our false ego. So, so just by endeavoring to actually cultivate the things, then obviously one starts to advance. Just by Krishna's mercy, you know, one starts to seize these things. So flexibility means, you know, you start to respect and tolerate others' differences, you know. So that's a sign of maturity. Intolerance and inflexibility in terms of disrespecting others or putting people down or looking down on people, that type of thing, that's a sign of neophyte. You know, and it will take time. One have to also tolerate that, you know, type of thing. So this way or that way. Krishna Archana.
You were bringing up that since Vasudeva and Nanda were brothers, half brothers, that there must have been some shared knowledge related to, you know, Kamsa's activities and yeah. So actually, this is the second time that Nanda Maharaj is getting a hint of things being different from what it
Right.
appears. Because the other time, I mean, here it's Gargamuni indirectly telling him that Krishna is the son of Devaki, and that might become apparent were he to, you know, perform the purificatory rituals. But the other time that Nanda Maharaj gets a hint of things being different from what they appear is when he goes to pay taxes to Kamsa, and he has a conversation with Vasudeva, and then Vasudeva says to him, you know, as a very elderly person, it's very unusual that you had a son. So apparently with advanced age, it's, if one does beget a child, it's usually a daughter. So he got a hint even there that there's something unusual about the fact that he has a son.
Yeah, I think there were other things that Vasudeva hinted, you know, like that. But yeah, I mean, inferring. It's not mentioned like that, although Prabhupada says indirectly. So I'm assuming, like, you know, they have to be some sort of knowledge, especially among the family, close family, of these type of things. But at the end, what we know that is clear in the Srimad Bhagavatam is that Nanda and Yashoda and the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they just can't understand Krishna's position. So, and we know that this is the actions of Yogamaya, and it's for the purpose of facilitating the Lord's pastimes and the relationship, the loving relationship, unhindered by awe and reverence. So, so that for sure we know, and that's the important part. That's what is presented by Sukadev Goswami. Okay, I think I should stop here. Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.